Good morning, and welcome to the Vancouver Unitarians worship service, broadcast live from our sanctuary at the corner of Oak and 49th, on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded, or stolen lands of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh First Nations. And today, also from Nelson, BC, traditional home of the Ktunaxa, the Syilx, and the Sinixt peoples. We are grateful to those who came before us, and we are grateful for those with whom we share these lands today. We in this community are committed to working with Indigenous peoples as accomplices in shifting the colonial default. My name is Galen Elfert. I've been a member of UCV for almost 20 years, and I am honored to be serving as a secretary of the Board of Trustees. For those of you returning, welcome back. For those of you who are tuning in for the first time, we welcome you and encourage you to join us for a virtual coffee hour on Zoom right after the service, where today, and on the first Sunday of every month, there is a breakout room for newcomers to learn more about UU and UCV. Everyone tuning in, please say hello and greet each other in the chat, and feel free to make comments throughout the service. Reverend Ron Phares, minister of the North Shore Unitarians, is leading our worship service today, while our interim minister, Reverend Lara Cowton, is up at North Shore and will return to us next Sunday. For information about upcoming services, community announcements, and opportunities to participate in programs, please refer to the order of service and to our website. I will have some other announcements to bring to your attention later on in the service. The offering that is collected electronically during the service supports our Outreach Opportunities Fund, which will be shared with the Treehouse Vancouver Child and Youth Advocacy Centre, working to prevent child abuse and family violence in Vancouver. Your generosity supports the ongoing work of our church and the larger Unitarian Universalist movement of which we are a part. I invite you now to light a chalice or a candle in your own home as we watch a video of our chalice lighting to begin our time of worship together.
Together we light this candle, together we see its light, in kindness and in deep bonds of community, with love for the human family and all its variety, with reverence before the world and its teeming web of life. May we care for our earthly home and each other with courage, love, and justice, and may it be so.
Leading into light. Advent is a time of waiting, of cultivating patience. This season asks us to hold faith that all we are becoming is still awakening under the surface of our lives. May this time of waiting inspire our courage. May we find the soft spot in the pressures of this season and stay with it as we discern our way forward. May we be filled with loving kindness. May we be at ease and discover the true practice of peace so that there might be peace in the world. On this second Sunday of Advent, we light the candle of peace with the words of Pema Chodron, a Buddhist nun, who says, "If we want there to be peace in the world, we have to be brave enough to soften what is rigid in our hearts, to find the soft spot and stay with it. We have to have that kind of courage and take that kind of responsibility. That is the true practice of peace. And with those words, I will light our second candle of Advent. Good morning. I'm Reverend Ron Phares. I serve our sibling UU congregation across the water there on the North Shore. And we recently spent a few Sundays reflecting on the three main themes of our mission statement, which states that we encourage one another to live with greater depth, meaning, and purpose. And this inquiry opened some interesting, even peculiar vistas. Turns out, of course, that depth, meaning, and purpose feed and enhance one another. But one of these pillars in particular seemed to resonate with this month's theme of stillness. And so I thought I'd offer those insights up for your consideration today. We'll get into the how of it momentarily, but what we found is that meaning, that's the one that we're going to talk about, meaning is about connection. Yet, crucially, it isn't generated, as I had long assumed that it was. Rather, it was inherent in the fabric of our being. It was ours to discover meaning rather than create it. Discovering it has something to do with responsibility and self-worth and the cultivation of a mind still enough to discern what is truly important. In fact, there's no time to start better than right now. It's probably why this sort of community that you find yourself engaging in today exists. So let us begin with our cultivation of stillness with some music. Please, if you wish to, go ahead and rise and body your spirit in your living room or in your kitchen or wherever you find yourself today. Rise and know that your fellow congregants are rising with you to sing, standing up in whatever fashion they are able to do in the privacy of their own homes. It may feel a little bit ridiculous, but perhaps knowing that other folks are doing that with you will help you remember this day. So please rise and body your spirit as we sing hymn number 352, Find a Stillness.
Stillness, let the stillness carry me. Find the silence, hold the silence, let the silence carry me. In the Spirit, by the Spirit, with the Spirit giving power, I will find true harmony. Seek the essence, hold the essence, let the essence carry me. Let me flower, help me flower, watch me flower, carry me. In the Spirit, by the Spirit, with the Spirit giving power, I will find true harmony.
This morning, we're talking about stillness. That's our theme for the month of December. What does it mean to be a people of stillness? Does that always mean being quiet? I don't think so. Stillness is about feeling what we feel inside and noticing that, and noticing what's around us, feeling our feet on the ground, our bottoms on the seat, feeling the wind if we're outside, or just noticing what we can hear, or how our food tastes, how it feels on our tongue. And in that spirit of stillness, I'm sharing a book this morning called Here and Now, words by Julia Danos, illustrated by E.B. Goodale. Right here, right now, you are reading this book. The book is in your lap, or in your hands, or in someone else's. You are sitting, or you are standing, or you are wrapped up in a bed. Under your bum, under your feet, is a seat, a floor, or a cloud if you're on an airplane. And under all of those things is the earth, the grass and the dirt, the earthworms and the fossils, the rocks. And the earth is spinning in the middle of space. We don't know why, but it is. And you are too. Right here, right now, while you are reading this book, many, many things are happening. Rain is forming in the belly of a cloud. An ant has finished its home on the other side of the planet. Somewhere, a telephone is ringing. An idea is blooming. Grass is pushing up through the cement. A friend you haven't met yet is sitting down to dinner. There are animals, wild ones and tame, living and breathing all around you. Muscles are growing, cities are growing, cuts and broken bones are sewing up and healing. Unseen work is being done. Right here, right now, you are becoming. And isn't it wonderful? Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I hope you're having a cozy morning. Near the start of our service, we light a candle in the sanctuary and in our homes as a symbol of our community, our love for each other, and for the teeming web of life. As each candle is lit, please take a moment to think of each person and join us in saying, "We light this candle together." I begin with some requests carried over from last week that I didn't catch. I'm a beginner at this, more complicated than you might think, so please be patient with me. So from last week, Lori requested a candle be lit for all the suffering children around the world. We light this candle together. Bob Woodham asked us to please light a candle of congratulations for Joe Connors, longtime UCV member, now living in Victoria, whose membership in the Order of Canada was announced last week. We light this candle together. Jamie asked us to light a candle for a friend, Jordan, and his mom in Ontario. We light this candle together. Diane Lynch requested a candle be lit for Fatima's mom, Maria, who is passing in hospital. We light this candle together. Diane Lynch requested a candle be lit. Oh, sorry, just did that one. Wendy Knox Carr requested a candle for Ricardo Castillo, the loveliest, sweetest man in our building who passed away 3 weeks ago. We and his family miss him. We light this candle together. And new requests from this week. Carrie, Esme, and Hawk ask us to light a candle for Chris, who has been intubated for 3 weeks now and whose family is desperate for her lungs to heal. We light this candle together. Marcia Brownday requests a candle be lit for all the women who have been the victims of violence by men, and we light this candle that men speak up to keep this from happening again. We light this candle together. Donna Brown asks that we light a candle for Leslie Hill, who is recovering from surgery. We light this candle together. We are asked to please light a candle for people struggling for democratic rights and a better life in Cuba, and for a friend, Miguel, turning 60 in Havana today. We light this candle together. Catherine Roback asks us to please light a candle for her family holding vigil in Austria, saying goodbye to Opa. We light this candle together. Lori requests we light a candle for Dan and Leontina, who are struggling with severe anxiety. We light this candle together. Catherine Stewart asks that we light a candle for Randall McKinnon, who generously donated the proceeds from the sale of his record collection to the UCV Refugee Committee. We light this candle together. Kirsten Moore asks us to please light a candle for all the adults, children, and youth involved in creating our filmed solstice pageant for December 20th. Thank you. We light this candle together. We light our last candle for ourselves as a symbol of our community and our care and concern for each other. We light this candle together. Thank you.
In that spirit of witness and gratitude and holding one another, I would invite you into a state of meditation. So please find yourself in a comfortable position, one that doesn't require you to pay much attention to it. Take a few moments to center yourself wherever you might be. And we begin with breath. So with me, if you would inhale. Inhale one more. I invite you into the loving kindness meditation. Where you think or say along with me, may I be at peace. May I be safe. May I be well and truly happy. Now, if you would call to mind someone with whom you get along easily, someone whose smile comes readily to your imagination. And think of them. May you be at peace. May you be safe. May you be truly happy. There's probably many people in your life who you do not know well but see frequently enough to recall their face, maybe the barista at your favorite coffee shop, someone that you know in passing but maybe not even know their name. Bring their image to mind. May you be at peace. May you be safe. May you feel true happiness. And now the really fun one. Someone with whom your relationship is thorny, and it could be someone you know personally or someone you simply know of. Bring this person's image to your mind's eye. And to them we will say, may you be at peace. May you be safe. And may you be truly happy. Expand your consciousness to include all of those nearby with these sentiments. Expand your consciousness to include all those in our city, all those in our region, all those on our continent, all those on our planet. May all beings be safe. May all beings be at peace. And may all beings be truly, truly happy. With that spirit, I invite you into silence. Thank you. And thank you, and thank all of you here, this crew of folks who are bringing this service to you. Really appreciate all the work that you do to convey what we're doing here to the folks at home. And thank you, folks at home, for tuning in and for allowing me to occupy this space in your liturgy and this space in your pulpit. It is a joy to be here, and it's a joy to connect across that little bit of water there, our two congregations. I love pulpit swaps. I love building that Unitarian Universalist community, and I say, let's do more of this, and let's, whether the pandemic continues, I mean, it's continuing, but for how long we don't know, but now, later, anytime, I say, let's find ways to get together and share our wisdom and our experiences and build the Unitarian Universalist identity in the greater Vancouver area. So it's a real joy being here. The last time that I was here was actually for candidating week, I think, when I was hoping to be called over at the North Shore, and I delivered a sermon here maybe 2 years ago. And, you know, it's a very hush-hush kind of operation. You're not supposed to know that that's why I'm here. It's a badly kept secret, probably, because there's a lot of coincidences. Suddenly, 7 members from the North Shore are here to watch a minister speak. But the interesting thing, too, of course, is I couldn't tell my home congregation back in Arizona, Tucson, Arizona, in fact, that I was coming up here, right? Because that is also quite awkward. Anyway, everything's going fine, and about halfway through the sermon, I recognize 2 people from my home congregation in Tucson in the pews. And that was not an experience of stillness for me. It was a little bit shocking, and it put me, like, you know, I'm a minister. I'm not supposed to lie. Right? I mean, you're not a minister and you're not supposed to lie. Anyway, by the way, you can't get out of it just because you're not a minister, right? But anyway, I'm not supposed to lie. And I had to come up with some partially true reason why I was here. And I think I may have done that well enough. At any rate, this place and this pulpit is meaningful to me because I've actually got a pretty significant story from my own life here. And I think that meaning is conveyed in story, right? I mean, that living with meaning is a core piece of my current home congregation's mission. It's both inspiring and, I suppose, a little redundant in a way. Religion at its essence is about understanding our deep connections and reinforcing that understanding through word, song, story, and ceremony, right? That's what religion does. So meaning is the abstract conceptualization of the direct feeling of connection, the very thing that we are set out to cultivate. So in that sense, an exploration into the nature of meaning is part and parcel with any religious enterprise, very much including the one toward which you are presently orienting yourself, which is to say this one, the Unitarian Church of Vancouver. So even though this reflection began with a curiosity within my home congregation's mission statement, I think it's a topic of universal concern. Meaning. It's a thoroughly tilled field of thought in philosophy, psychology, and linguistics. But when I think about the mission of a congregation, the missionalization, if you will, of meaning, I don't think that we are indicating or wondering about greater symbolic meaning or more thorough understanding of sign and signifier. I think what we're talking about is something more like meaningfulness. We want to encourage and even enable each other to have meaningful lives. So what makes a meaningful life? It's been said that a meaningful life, a life of meaning, is one that must include a sense of responsibility. Without a sense of responsibility, without something to care about, life becomes meaningless. I can go with that. Though I would caution that there is a difference between a sense of responsibility and acting responsibly, and that a great deal of violence is possible in that gap. A zealot is replete with this sense of responsibility after all. And that leads me to consider that meaningfulness, like power, is kind of a neutral term and can be used for good or harm. So discerning the difference becomes massively important and requires the checks and balances of both community and, I would say, an additional resource that is rather more constant than the swirling winds of context that we all must navigate daily, something a bit out of time. So however neutral, to say that a meaningful life is one that must include a sense of responsibility is a good start. It is revealing and is illustrated by a strong correlation between the loss of a sense of responsibility, say the loss of a job or an ability, the correlation between those losses and self-destructive behavior. It's not a happy example, but it points to something quite interesting. It strongly suggests that if responsibility is a key to a meaningful life, that meaning and self-worth are a snug fit. A meaningful life has something to do with a recognition or feeling of our own self-worth. So we hear an echo of our Unitarian Universalist principles there. Of course, our principles proclaim that worth is inherent. So now it gets really interesting because that means that worth is prior to any effort. It's given. You don't have to prove your worth. Inherent means prior to responsibility. And this is not only absolutely key, but quite startling, I think, in its implications. For if we proclaim that worth is inherent, and we draw this line between meaningfulness and worth, does that not suggest that meaningfulness is also inherent? And if that's the case, would not a felt sense of meaning generate responsibility and not the other way around? It's not that responsibility generates meaning, but meaning generates responsibility. If we recall that meaning is an expression of connection, this makes even more sense. For connection, think about those things that you are most deeply connected to. Connection calls forth our responsibility. Now, unfortunately, we as a culture have often misallocated our sense of responsibility, or at least that sense of our responsibility, it's myopic. We confuse the immediate and relative for the essential. It's not the essential. I'll say that again. It is a problem that we confuse the immediate and relative for the essential. More simply put, it is a problem when we confuse ourselves for our status. When we conceive of responsibility as a job or a title or an income or a product. When we do that, we outsource the meaningfulness of our lives. And this puts us in peril, makes us easily manipulated, and surrenders our sovereignty to circumstance. It's an odd kind of narcissism that inspires this misbegotten quest for an outside sense of responsibility. It's a narcissism that says, I'm not good enough, as much as it is the kind that says, I'm all that matters. Strange how those two sentiments are often two sides of the same mistake. What's worse is that senses of responsibility grounded in status emerge and are the product of an extractive, in our case, an extractive economic system that is anything but responsible and constantly puts under threat the status-dependent sense of responsibility. On the other hand, and sort of counterintuitively, the faith, and by faith I mean real knowing without possibility of proof, the faith that worth is inherent, quiets the ego that leads to narcissism. If we knew we were the inherent possessors of worth, if we really felt that, and you do sometimes, right? When we feel that, we are less susceptible to the allure of the tyranny of narcotics or the narcotic of tyranny, the violent fear of atonement, or any of the temptations of outsourced meaning. A true sense of inherent worth and the inherent worth of others organically, almost effortlessly, compels us to act responsibly, or at least to be curious about our actions and thus to act less irresponsibly. Meaning is all around us. You are meaningful. Inherently. You are important. So is the person next door. And the person bagging your groceries. And the eco-range through which you walk, and the eco-range under threat of clear-cut, and the roughneck whose livelihood is linked to that clear-cutting. The banker, the pauper, the elders, the waters. Inherently meaningful. As you listen to the music that you are about to hear, see if you can still yourself, such that you might find your meaningfulness that is not contingent on your status, not dependent on your success or failures. See if you can sink in. So as I was listening to the music there and trying to do the very thing that I had asked you to do, to find that meaningfulness that was not contingent on my status, it occurred to me that it was a little bit ironic, because here I am hoping that this sermon is successful. and what if it's not? So then how to find that stillness even in the midst of and meaningfulness? Preaching on the fact that it is inherent and not contingent on either of those outcomes became a little bit of an interesting exercise. And I don't know, what does it feel like? It felt like there was maybe a constant stream or thread that I could identify with, that did not have to do with whether or not you're actually having a good time. But it's not that I don't care about whether or not you're having a good experience right now, so that's not it either. And it gets even a little bit more complicated, because we act responsibly to that which we deem meaningful, and I hope I'm acting responsibly now. But if meaning and worth are inherent to being itself, that means, I think, that we are compelled to act responsibly toward everything, which feels like a lot for any one person. And while it's ontologically true that as a jewel in Indra's net, as a node within the interdependent web of existence, you are already a part of everything, and everything is a part of you, and you are impossible if isolated. I am of thee, you are of me. It is also true that we simply don't have the bandwidth to consciously identify with everything, much less everything that we encounter. So we narrow down our input to a digestible degree and build relationships with that subset, and through that subset, feel our relationships with the whole. That subset conveys to you meaning and calls you into true responsibility. That subset is what is meaningful to you when meaning arises from your inherent worth and not from your status. That subset is you. It is at least your identity. So getting back to making a mission out of meaning or meaningfulness, the question becomes, how do we help each other discern and maintain our identity, our meaningful life? It helps to have help in this project. Our congregation, your congregation, is a means to that. Do you ever think of church or church community as a spiritual tool? It is. So you might as well use it. In this case, church is a means by which we can discern whether our behavior is the result of internal or external generation. We can check that with one another. We could listen to each other's stories. Yet as refining as community can be, it is not enough. It's critical, but it's not enough. Communities can be mistaken or misguided. So it helps to have that one foot in the timeless, the non-contextual, a deep tradition which we have, a sacred text, a deity, or the spirit and personality of an eco-range. But to hear that, to hear any of that, to hear where our inherent meaningfulness emerges, it does require a kind of stillness. After all, one cannot truly know what is inherent without applying a level of attention available only when stillness has been achieved. Having stilled the onrush of your day-to-day, you may inquire then after the things that seem to be calling to you. Are they emerging as a response to, through, and from your inherent worth? Or as some ego need? It gets tricky. Is it, in effect, that an act of gratitude or the feeling of gratitude generated by the feeling that your inherent meaningfulness recognizes the inherent meaningfulness of whatever or whoever you are engaging with, that at last will reveal that we are on the right path? I think yes. Meaning is about recognizing connection. It isn't generated by us, but rather is inherent in the fabric of being, ours to discover rather than create. Discovering it has something to do with responsibility and self-worth and the cultivation of a mind still enough to discern what is truly important. It is a return to the essential inherent within all contexts. A return to the essential. And it can be life-saving, particularly in these days of isolation where both our status and our true connections are being shaken. So I say, take refuge in your faith. Your worth does not depend on your status. Your worth does not even really depend on your behavior. It's the other way around. Your behavior is dependent on your sense of meaning, on your sense of your soul, of your heart. Remember the inherent meaningfulness of your living and reach out with that feeling. Remember the inherent meaningfulness of your living and reach out with that feeling through all of your senses into a world overflowing with connection. I invite you to rise in body or spirit. Join one another in singing hymn number 298, Wake Now My Senses.
Wake now my senses and hear the earth call. Feel the deep power of being in awe. Keep with the web of creation your vow. Giving, receiving as love shows us how. Wake now my reason, reach out to the new. Join with each pilgrim who quests for the true. Honor the beauty and wisdom of time. Suffer thy limit and praise the sublime. Wake now compassion, give heed to the cry. Voices of suffering fill the wide sky. Take as your neighbor both stranger and friend, praying and striving their hardship to end. Wake now my conscience, with justice thy guide. Join with all people whose rights are denied.
Now I invite you to rise and body your spirit to receive the benediction. And I really mean that. If you're not already risen from that beautiful song, please do so. And if you don't want to stand up, or if you're not able to stand up, raise your hands, raise your eyes, do something physical, and know that people are doing that with you all around this amazing city. As we leave this sacred time and place that we have crafted together, you at home and we here in the sanctuary, that we crafted this time together, that we set it aside and joined in this moment together as we leave this sacred time. Let us do so with senses wide open, with our hearts open and receptive to the meaning in our lives that is not contingent, that is essential to the very essence of life and being itself. Let us go in peace. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for tuning in and being part of our community this morning. For your presence, your financial support, and your continued dedication to the mission of UCV. We also thank Reverend Ron Phares and the talented and tireless staff and volunteers who work to produce these services each week. Please join me in saying our affirmation of gratitude. Let us be grateful when we are able to give, for many do not have that privilege. Let us be grateful for all those who share their gifts, for we are enriched by their giving. And let us be grateful even for our needs, so that we may be held by the generosity of others. A few announcements I'd like to bring to your attention. Next Sunday, December 13th, we will have our usual worship in the morning with Reverend Laura Cowden at 11, and then at 7 p.m. will be our annual special candlelight service of music and readings, using the same link as our worship. Don't miss it. The UCV choir has been working hard to create a very special holiday music service for all of us. And as usual, I would like to encourage you to join us for our Zoom coffee hour after the service. You'll see instructions on your screen at the end of the live stream. Now please join in singing our closing song, Carry the Flame.